Okay, hello. Welcome to our weekly extras, probably in like week 6 or 7 now. Really privileged to be joined by Charlie Turnbull today, 13s and 14s head coach at Fulham Football Club. Probably just a real, really privileged to be able to gain some insights today from a Category 1 academy coach and somebody who's been working within academy football for some time now. Charlie, I'm just going to pass over to you, if you don't mind, just to give a bit of a brief introduction for our students, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Cheers, Tom. So if I start with playing background, someone who kind of went through the entire academy system, I guess. I was at an academy a couple of different academies from the age of 7 all the way through to 17. And I think I probably experienced pretty much all of the things you can experience as an academy player. So I experienced playing up, I played down. I had injuries, like small niggly injuries, but I also had a couple of longer term injuries that required operations. I moved from club to club for compensation. I was released a couple of times. I had an agent at one point. I had sponsorship deals at another point. So yeah, I really feel like in the sort of 10 years I spent in the academy system, I experienced pretty much all of the highs and lows that the academy players I work with experience. I then, upon leaving the academy system, I went and played abroad for a small, quite a short period in the end, out in Norway. Ended up coming back and I played some non-league stuff. So I played in Conference South with Woking for a couple of years, which then probably takes me on to, I guess, the first stage of my kind of academic journey in coaching. So I was playing for Woking, as I said, and I was playing we were part-time. So I was playing part-time and then I was working part-time at HMV as like a Christmas temp. And I just realised I was going nowhere with my life, let alone my career. I think I was about 19 at the time. And yeah, that was a real wake-up call for me. You know, in the stockroom at HMV, I thought I need to kind of make a change here. And I wouldn't profess to be that, keen a student while I was at school, but as I started to go through my A levels and I did like a BTEC, I did start to find I was becoming more and more, I guess, interested in studying. So that was when I decided to start a degree. So I was fortunate enough. I was the last year. I was the last intake at Loughborough where they allowed BTECs into their main course, their main sport and exercise science degree course. After that point, BTECs weren't allowed. So I was really fortunate to get onto that course, which was, as I say, sport and exercise science, very broad. I didn't really know what I wanted to do or wanted to be. I just knew that I kind of wanted to change my career trajectory. So yeah, as I say, very broad. I studied a whole host of different modules, a lot of probably physiology-based modules as well, which can't say have massively helped in my day-to-day in my current job, but probably what it has done is given me a little bit of a, I guess, theoretical underpinning to a lot of the stuff that goes on with our athletic development with the players. So I do think it's probably helped in me understanding that stuff and probably holding my own in that arena a little bit better than I would have done. I did that degree. Again, as I say, not really knowing what I wanted to do, but probably the other big experience whilst at university was the people that I got to meet. So I played football at uni, and the football club's got a really illustrious tradition, I guess, of top football people coming through there and then working in Premier League back teams or working in the game. So really fortunate to meet probably 10 to 15 people that I still speak to today. Like this break, I've managed to catch up with quite a few of them. So yeah, really fortunate to meet a lot of top people in my time there, and that kind of set me on the path with coaching. So one of my coaches in particular, while I was at Loughborough, Kieran McKenna, was a big influence on me, and probably the inspiration for me to start coaching. So yeah, I started my coaching journey at Loughborough, playing and coaching with the university teams, which was a great experience. I'm sure a lot of your students are probably in the same boat now, coaching the uni teams, and probably one of my most enjoyable years of coaching. Just the freedom, and I was totally naive, but you're just doing everything in your own, I guess, in your own image, and you live and die by your own sword, I guess, and that was great. I really enjoyed it. And then, yeah, probably moving on from there, I was lucky enough, as I say, I met some good people, and I managed to get myself a job at Tottenham off the back of my degree. So I went and worked at Tottenham as an analyst first and foremost. So I was a full-time analyst and a part-time coach in the foundation phase. Really good couple of years there. Particularly with the analysis side of things, I was working with the older age groups. So I felt, and Tottenham have got a really strong, I guess, playing identity or playing philosophy. So I feel like I learned a lot about the game, like as in the nuts and bolts of the game in my time there. And probably my ideas haven't deviated massively from my time there, really, in the subsequent years. And yeah, I guess learning the analysis side of things has been crucial for me as well, moving through my career. Like even to this day, I still try and do as much of my own analysis as I can. So that was I guess a key skill set to develop early on, and I think that's held me in good stead in subsequent years. I guess that then probably takes me on to starting my masters. So while I was at Tottenham, obviously I was coaching, and really I'd done a bit of coaching at uni level, but beyond that, I was a totally inexperienced coach. I hadn't gone down the same route as other people, like doing schools or camps or anything like that. I hadn't done any of that stuff. It was pretty much my first proper coaching gig, working at Cat 1 academy level. And I around about that time, I don't know if you remember, but there was so many like debates going on Twitter around like really polarized debates, like isolated practice or games, questions or tell, all that kind of stuff. And where I didn't really have much of a theoretical understanding of coaching and teaching, because the uni course I didn't really do many modules related to that. I maybe did like one. And Spurs probably wasn't the strongest in that sense. Like their coaching philosophy was probably a bit ad hoc. Found myself quite probably a bit disillusioned and a bit confused, really, because a lot of the stuff I was reading and listening was saying that the traditional approaches to coaching were a little bit outdated. Constructivist approaches to coaching are kind of like the way forward. But then all of the best coaches I knew and watched and worked with, didn't ever not use constructivist approaches. But there was a real balance there, and there was a lot of explicit practice design and explicit coaching going on. So I was probably a bit confused, and I just kind of wanted to iron out that stuff in my mind, which is why I decided to do a master's in sports coaching at Loughborough. So obviously, going down much more of a specific route in terms of what I was trying to learn about. And I think the course was great for that. The discussions that I was able to have with the lecturers and some of the candidates that were on the course as well, and a lot of the learning content, it really cleared up a lot of that stuff in my mind, and probably helped me to develop a much better filter. I feel like I'm so much less confused now, and I'm so much less swayed by I don't want to say fads, but things that are just popular in coaching. I feel like I've got a much firmer grasp on kind of like the fundamentals of my approach to coaching, and I feel like I kind of know why I'm doing what I'm doing. or at least have more clarity now than I did do. So yeah, that was a great experience for me. And yeah, whilst I was doing that masters, I started that masters at Tottenham and ended it at Fulham. So I changed clubs to Fulham, and yeah, I'd say Fulham is probably the club where I've kind of just grown as a coach, like really cemented a lot of my ideas. I've met a lot of great people. I've had a lot of good experiences. So obviously, Tomo, as you know, I started on the college programs and coaching in the foundation phase, and then got the opportunity to move full time at the club and move into the youth phase. So that kind of brings me up to today, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that's everything.
Chaz, I'm just drawing upon some of the stuff you spoke about, mate. And one is just like your reflective capacity, or just your capacity to be able to, at key moments, it seems, just be able to really consider where your own beliefs, but also like where you might need some investment, which I think is a really big skill. But it's just something that struck me, like both at the moment where you were in the HMV stockroom, but also when you
that was an obvious one, though, mate.
Yeah. Well, it depends what DVDs you're putting out. If you're putting out the sellers or the discount, which one you're on. But I think the other moment where you mentioned about being at Tottenham and just needing a bit of clarity, and then having, as a consequence, and investing in trying to do something. It's really difficult probably to reflect now, but like back on how you were feeling at those times. I'm just really interested in how, as an individual, you go about doing that, because I think we probably all feel like that at some point, but then to take action on those things is often quite like a brave move, or like you have to be quite assertive, I think, in your thinking. So
yeah,
illuminate that would be intriguing.
Yeah, I think probably thinking about it now, the kind of key shifts that I've made in my career have come in my like kind of lowest moments, I guess, in my playing career, and then well, if you can call it a career, but my playing journey, and then my coaching journey, which I don't know whether that's rare or not, but probably definitely I'd say one of the catalysts was just, I guess, having no fear. Like being a little bit younger, I couldn't care less about the money that I was on, or the status of what I was doing. I was quite happy to just go and leave a club like Tottenham, which is a massive football club with a really great production line and a very, very highly respected academy. So looking back on it, it's a very bold move, I guess. But yeah, at the time I just wanted to develop, and I didn't feel like it was the right place for me. So I moved on. So I guess just taking a few risks, really, and maybe some people would say it's a bit naive, but I certainly don't have any regrets, looking back now.
Yeah, and then the other thing I just wanted to draw upon is like both. Spoke a lot about individuals being quite like influential. Obviously mentioned the likes of Kieran, etc. And I suppose my question really is just around like how do you decipher those influential people within your life, particularly at key moments? And then also it's quite apparent from what you were saying around like you were quite consciously aware when you were at Tottenham of like what was going on basically around you. So the debate between isolated practice and games, etc. So you were clearly also like investing in reading and listening to stuff as well. So I'm also just intrigued in the way in which you were going about fundamentally like getting information from people, like acquiring knowledge really, and what those processes look like for you, and probably what they still look like for you, perhaps.
Yeah. So in terms of with the individuals, I guess probably it initially starts just happenstance. You come across people in your life, through luck, I guess.
Yeah.
But then I would say there was probably in the first team at the time at Loughborough, there was probably a training squad of 30 to 35 players, and I'm probably the only person that's still in touch with Kieran.
Right. Okay.
So, everybody had that opportunity. Everybody, came across him, but, very quickly, after he coached me once or twice, I realized, right, this is someone who's got a very similar set of values to me, very like-minded, and, his knowledge of the game, like, wowed me really. And I thought, right, this is the type of person I need to try and, strike up a relationship with. So I was the type of player that would be asking questions. I'd be going for coffees with him in the union, and going way above and beyond, and a little bit from his side as well. I think he saw in me someone who was interested in this stuff, and so I think it was two-way, but initially probably me going above and beyond to try and engage him and strike up a relationship. And likewise, since our careers have sort of deviated quite dramatically when you see where he is now. I'm still, in fact, I'm going to speak to him tomorrow on a web call, but that's come about through me sharing some stuff with him, like sharing some video and sharing some practice, I guess, which has struck up a conversation that we can then we can then obviously have a bit more of an in-depth conversation about. So I definitely think I guess for coaches that are just starting out and they're trying to strike up a relationship with a mentor or whatever, I remember probably one key bit of advice John McDermott gave me at Spurs, and he didn't phrase it quite like this. It was much more blunt, but essentially, if there's someone much more experienced than you that you want to pick their brain, you don't go there with nothing. You've kind of got to bring something first, to engage them. Otherwise, these people, they just won't, like that. You'd be lucky for them to invest their time. So, I think if you come across people that you want to either build a relationship with or just learn more from, I think the onus is on you and the responsibility is with you to, find a way to get them interested in you first and foremost, and provide something. It's not a one-way process where you can just milk them and pick their brains. You've kind of got to offer something yourself, or at least that's what I've found. Or it's the approach I've always taken. And it's only been with maybe 2 or 3 people across my whole career, I guess. So you've probably got to be a bit selective as well.
No, it's good advice, I think, and interesting. Okay, cool. I'm gonna ask you to share now, Chaz. Really, probably off the back of the conversation we've had, but and something that's intrigued me probably all season really is just your work around a specific like season plan, and having a clear idea in your mind around a game model. We were fortunate enough to speak to Vitor Matos last week, the Liverpool first team coach, who spoke about principally the real need to have a really clear idea of your game model in your mind as a coach, and that's something that you continue to invest in and like redevelop basically. So it'd be really, really great if you could just go into some detail with the work that you've done with your players this year.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, man.
So I think probably the first thing to say is that this whole thing is, well, not thing, but me explicitly developing a game model for a group of players has come about since Ben came in, Ben Bartlett. Obviously, pre-Ben, we had a playing philosophy that was still fairly general, but the guidance for coaches was kind of you more or less, the playing philosophy is very, very broad. It still is, so it left you a lot of room for manoeuvre, I guess, but you kind of felt like you were developing your game model off the back of that playing philosophy in a much more rigid way than since Ben's come in. So Ben's came in and sort of tasked all of the full-time coaches with developing a plan for the age group that you work with, that essentially details how you're going to develop the individuals within your group, how you're going to develop the playing style, and how you're going to work as a MD team, a multidisciplinary team, to bring about those outcomes, essentially. So I always sort of had things in my mind that were kind of crucial to the way that I wanted to play. And some of that was down, like documented, but some of it wasn't. But what this has kind of forced me to do is document it in a much more purposeful way, which has been great, really. And obviously still what I've produced fits within the playing philosophy that we've got at the football club. It's not like I've deviated wildly from what we've got. But as I say, the playing philosophy is quite a broad set of principles that are just basically the game, I guess, the laws of the game and the means of the game. So pretty much anything that you produce would probably still fit within that. So yeah, I'll just share my screen.
Perfect.
Okay, so obviously, Tom, it was the creating and converting stuff that you wanted me to talk about, but probably before I talk about that stuff, the thing that's become quite apparent for me over the past couple of years is it's really important that you do have quite a balanced, well, not even quite a balanced game model, and just respect the fact that when you make tweaks in one moment of the game, it's going to have both intended and unintended consequences with the rest of your game model and the rest of the moments of the game. So it's not just about, focusing solely on one moment of the game and tweaking that without understanding how that impacts the rest of your game, which I think is quite an important point to make before we speak about the specifics. And then, sorry, let me just check there we go. And then moving on to the topic of the conversation, I guess, creating and converting, and the key thing that I wanted to achieve at the start of the year was develop more of a structure around this moment of the game, for a number of reasons, really. The first reason being, I really feel like the game's kind of moved on in recent years. So the sort of traditional notion of the coach's role is to get the players from the first third, or your build-up phase, or your build-up first phase, through the middle of the pitch. So you build up second phase into the final third, like the coach will deliver you there, and then it's just down to the players and their own creativity to create chances. I think that's quite an outdated notion. Like when you look at the game at the top end, like the final third is just as structured as the first two thirds now. Like when you look at the top teams and the top players, they're playing within a structure. And when I say structure, I don't just mean like people rigidly stick into positions. The structure's fluid, but there is a structure. It's not just people, acting of their own volition. So that would probably be the first reason. The second reason is obviously I work with the 13s and 14s, so sort of bridging that gap from the foundation phase and small-sided football into 11v11 football. And with the foundation phase, obviously I've worked in it a long time. You always feel like, particularly with the small-sided games, you're only ever maybe an action or two away from getting a shot off. So chances are much easier to come by. Whereas once you go 11v11, and naturally once you get into the YDP, defences are maybe a little bit more structured. You very quickly realise that you can't just rely on one or two individual actions to create you a chance. You might beat one, but then you've still got a backline to get past. So I think the players recognise that very quickly, and we recognise it as a staff as well. Like they need some more, I guess, structured or purposeful ideas on how to create chances, just to give them the best chance of having success. And then the final reason would just be the individuals that I have within the group. So, a little bit different from 13s to 14s, but I'll talk about the 13s. So with the 13s, the players that we have in our front line are just by pure chance are quite late developing, like very, very late maturers. So again, looking at it, we knew that there was it was very unlikely that they're ever going to be able to just like bulldoze their way through and create a chance. So again, we knew that we were going to have to be a bit more subtle and rely on, you know, a cohesive unit of players creating chances as opposed to just one individual bulldozing their way through. And likewise, we'd with our recruitment, we'd probably taken on a couple of projects in the front line, both in terms of players that we took from under 12 through to under 13. So there's a couple of players that were on the borderline of retain release, and we sort of erred on the side of caution there, and we retained them, and you know, trying to take a bit of a long-term view on those players. And then we recruited actually a couple of players in from grassroots who were quite raw, you know, again, taking quite a long-term view on them. So we're not blessed with unbelievable quality, individual quality that, you know, again, players are going to be able to create, you know, chances consistently just by themselves. So yeah, I guess that's probably the underpinning rationale for why I wanted to introduce some more structure into the final third this year. So are you seeing this okay, Tom?
Yes, mate. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, cool. Good. Yeah, so I guess moving on to more the specifics of how we've approached things. So we pitched it to the players around attacking a back four to begin with. And the reason for that is just because we predominantly play against a back four. I can probably count the number of times we've played against a back five on one hand, and probably less than that, maybe like 2 or 3 times we've played against a back five. So most of our attacking is done against a back four. So that's where we kind of pitched and shaped a lot of the work initially. And yeah, as I say, initially we absolutely hammered home the positioning of the players. So using a very like positional attack. So, you know, wingers providing width, like proper width, players in what we call like the inside channel, and then someone in the central channel to connect both sides of the pitch. And we sort of pitch that to the players as if you hold those positions, there's absolutely no way these 4 defenders can defend all 5 spaces. So you will get them, like one way or another, you will get them, whether it's on the outside or whether it's centrally, as long as people are holding and threatening these 5 channels, you will create a chance, because they can't defend everything. They're always going to be wrong. And as I say, we hammered the positioning, and what we gave the boys was like priority channels. So the left wing, or let's take the left-sided attacking midfielder. This was kind of like his priority channel, the left inside channel. But that doesn't mean that he can't attack this channel or he can't attack this channel. They're kind of like his secondary channels to attack. But what we're saying to him is, very rarely do we ever want you to come over here. There's no need. Like it's pointless, unless in specific situations we want to overload one side of the pitch. But that's, you know, quite unlikely. So yeah, that's I guess where the sort of fluidity comes in, or the loose structure. So we have priorities, but there is movement to rotate between these players, and this player attack that channel, this player attack that channel. And then we spoke a lot about the structure behind the ball. And if you just imagine the ball on this side of the pitch, we've worked a lot on what we call like our wide triangles. And what we've spoken about is fluidly occupying these 3 positions on the near side or the ball side. So it's not always the left back occupying the inside low point. It might be a midfielder dropping out and occupying that point, and this player coming in and this player moving. You know, that stuff's unimportant, but we still want these 3 positions occupied pretty much at all times. Whereas on the far side, we just speak about reorganization. So when the ball's on this side, use it as a time to reorganize yourselves so that you're ready for counter-attacks. So like, say, this player, making sure that he's marking their biggest counter threat while the ball's on this side here, and these 2 just organizing themselves so that if the ball is to be switched, they're ready to attack the channels that they need to attack. So that's been a key one as well, just returning to like having default positions that players can return to once they've rotated, once they've moved, players understanding where they need to return to. So you don't end up with like a really, poor positional structure after, 1 or 2 rotations or 10 or 15 minutes of the game. I guess the other big thing that our structure gives us is the ability to combine. So you're in through our wide triangles and the positioning of our central players and the positioning on the far side of the pitch. It gives us really good, just a really good platform to combine, and that's where a lot of our work has been done this year. So we've from this structure we've created some just dead simple patterns or concepts, whatever you want to call them, that we know will consistently create chances time and time again. And that's based on, elite football. Like we I guess we know like some of the fundamental concepts that will create chances. So I'll just whiz through those now. So first one, just as I say, like these are really simple, but I guess the complexity comes in getting everybody to have a common understanding of what these are and when we do them. That's the tough bit, getting the timing right, getting the positioning right, all that type of stuff. This concept is just for when we break the midfield line centrally into one of our attacking midfield players. And once these players are turned, we have that as a cue for wide players to attack the space in behind. For this player, it's then a choice of whether he slides in between or he slides outside. And I guess probably the most interesting thing with this one is we've probably spent, or certainly I have, spent as much time coaching when not to do this as I have when to do it. So the tendency we found with our attacking midfield players is once they get turned between the lines, they're just so eager to try and play a killer pass, try and slide someone in, like they slide their striker in. But we know that as soon as he gets turned, the reaction from these players is going to be, right, we're going to drop and we're going to drift together. We're going to protect the middle. So more often than not, when you're trying to force these killer passes, they don't happen, and you just waste an attack. Like you waste a chance. So like we've got you between the lines. It doesn't happen loads. We don't want to waste these moments. So it's been a lot of educating the players that as soon as you see that and these players drift together and they drop, move the ball wide. Which brings me on to the next combination. So once the ball's moved wide, that's where a lot of our combinations or concepts come from.
Sorry, Chaz, can I just pose a question quickly?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Just also, I'd just be really interested in your thoughts around, or particularly to tell the students, just around also the player's ability to draw pressure once you've like broken a line, and what strategies you might ask that midfield player to utilise to potentially cause an imbalance.
So I mean, I think the impact that this player getting turned between the lines happen anyway. Like these players will probably just naturally, come together and drop a little bit. But what it will do is draw the attention of these players. And really what we've spoken to this player about is once you're turned, you want to try and draw his attention as much as possible. So like, or his, to be fair, but, almost like driving towards one of these players based on where you want to go, not so much commit them, because I don't think they're ever really going to get fully committed unless they're, quite a poor defender. You're unlikely to commit them, but you just want to try and draw their attention long enough that you probably free this player up or this player up even more so. I think that's probably the most we've spoken about. If I'm honest, mate, like we've been on at these players about taking less touches between the lines a lot of the time. Couple of players, one player in particular, very, very talented, like good player, but just so uneconomical with his touches between the lines.
Right.
It takes 8 or 9 touches, and then the moment's kind of not gone, but it's not optimal anymore. It's not as good as it was.
Yeah.
Probably as much as we've spoken about staying on it in there, we've spoken about shifting it on quicker in there, which is, I guess, probably the opposite of what you're asking.
I know, yeah.
It's just kind of what's happened as the season's gone.
Yeah, but your answer is absolutely fine. It's based on the individual players that you have. I suppose I was just interested in, you talked just about drawing their attention. I think that's enough, and
yeah,
enough to take touches is probably a method for that. But yeah, it's interesting. Cheers, Chaz.
Charlie, can I just ask a quick question on that as well?
Yeah, sure.
I found it really interesting when you spoke earlier about the attacking players in your group potentially lacking that physical development at 13 and 14, which is something I can definitely relate to a long time ago now. But just really interesting to see whether or not you think that's played a part in their reluctance maybe to travel with the ball in those areas. Obviously, I'm not sure who your players are, but I know obviously at 13, 14, on this clip here, the distances seem small, but they can often be quite a lot larger than that in real life. And whether or not you think that might have played a part, as I say, in their reluctance to travel with the ball and commit players, because often the recovery lines of players that are more physically developed will catch them out. Good point. And it's something we've definitely noticed this year with a couple, as I say, there's one who is physically more developed, and he almost abuses that by taking too many touches. But we have got a couple that are that play in these two pockets that are pretty underdeveloped. And probably even before that, the amount of times we've been on at them this year, there's no centre back here, but just imagining like a standard line breaker from a centre back, this player can turn, but he bounces just because he's not he's not trusting his physicality to be able to get turned. And this player's probably a bit closer than it currently is in this like diagram. So there's just a bit of, I guess, fear of turning and allowing your touch to be a little bit further outside your body, and you're kind of getting into that. It's not really a 1v1, but it's that kind of like contact moment where if I'm not quick enough, he probably gets a toe on it, or maybe just even muscles me off the ball. We definitely have noticed that. And really our response has just been to try and encourage them to turn, which, probably means that they've given the ball away a little bit more. That's exactly what I was going to ask before you just said that. Obviously, there's, I think it's brave of you as a coach again, then to say to them that we would rather you turn and try and pose a threat rather than be safe all the time. And sometimes I think that's the sort of reinforcement and reassurance that young players need. So no, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so like moving on to once the ball's been shifted wide, again, like really simple concepts. So we've got a couple of wide players that we think are good in 1v1 situations. So we have really encouraged them to, if you receive like wide with good body shape and you're able to like attack the fullback, then go for it, like attack him in the 1v1. And we've often played with the wingers on their natural side. So we've encouraged them to go outside quite a bit. Like dead simple, but we've encouraged it with some wingers. With other wingers, we haven't done quite so much. And then we've spoken a lot with our attacking midfielders about. I'll come on to like underlaps in a bit, but the underlap is quite a popular movement to make from attacking midfielders it seems at the moment. But we've been speaking to them about when you're not making that run, how do you support the ball? And kind of going back to the physical stature of a couple of these players. So Tom, you'll know like a Kingy or a Haru, people like that. They haven't really got the athleticism to make that run with any real effectiveness. Like they do still do it, and it will drag players away. But they haven't really had much success with that run. So we've spoke to them a lot about how they actually support the ball when they're not making that run. So like simply just movements towards, and one combination we've worked a lot is just like dead simple, just a 1-2 between the right the right winger and the attacking midfielder. Obviously, if the twos isn't on, then looking to either attack the other side of the pitch or combine with whoever's in this low point to get to the other side of the pitch, I guess. And the likes of some of our less maturated tens of this has worked quite nicely for supporting here or even supporting all the way out, so like dropping the whole way out and letting your
letting your fullback move on a little bit higher. So the inside channel, like this has been like with my 14s. We've got some firepower in the front line, let's just say, and this like concept has worked like really, really well. Dead simple, like ball wide initially. Often the fullback gets attracted to this, opening up the inside channel. So it's just a well-timed movement, like nice and explosive in behind. The tough thing has been getting this player, like the right winger, to actually serve that with good quality and good timing. That's probably been the hardest bit. Like the attacking midfielders normally are absolutely keen to go and do it. They make the run. They make the run a lot. But yeah, it's just these players having the picture early enough to actually find this pass. But yeah, as I say, with the 14s, we've scored a lot of goals from this. One player in particular just runs this space so well, and his deliveries, like we speak about. To be fair, actually, I'll speak about this in a bit. But yeah, we have some set deliveries, some like priority deliveries, I guess, and our first priority is what we call like a corridor cross. So that essentially, like once you break this line and these players don't drop early enough, just that corridor of space that opens up between the goalkeeper and the defenders, like your first priority is, can I deliver into that space? The reason for that is just I think it's the easiest way to score from across. The ball's along the ground, there's no defenders in front, it's a tap in basically. But yeah, we've scored a lot of goals from this year with the 14s. This one has sort of developed as we've gone throughout the season, and I've really enjoyed coaching it actually. So this is almost like a follow-up action from the underlap. So what we found was the attacking midfielders were very keen to make this underlap, and obviously sometimes it's tracked, sometimes it's not tracked. But when it is tracked by like the holding midfielder, it just opens up like a really nice space inside the pitch. So we've done a lot of work with the right wingers or the wingers themselves on like once this is tracked, just using that pass to chop inside and attack the space inside, which is when I think the positioning. So like going back to like a positional attack, like the positioning across the 5 channels becomes really important, because as soon as he cuts in, we've scored a couple of goals from just the centre forward then exploiting the central channel, and it's just a slide in here, or it's then like this player makes the run, it clears again space, and then you're looking to try and get your furthest midfielder or sweep all the way out to your winger. So this one has been developed as we've gone as a result of this player being tracked a lot, and I think it's quite a nice example of, you know, you could probably look at this stuff and think, oh, it's just patterns, but it's not. It's responsive to what's happening in the game and what the opposition are doing in response to, you know, your movements and your combinations. Overlap, again, like really simple. We've used this less this year, certainly with the under 14s. Just the profile of our fullbacks in the under 14s, they're quite, I don't know, they're not that threatening in the final third, and we've got wingers that are very threatening in the final third and are good in this wide space, and we've got 10s that are very good in the pocket. So we've just asked these players to occupy the low point, almost be like more like controlling fullbacks, kind of like midfielders, to help us switch play, help us penetrate, but also to just keep us rock solid on the turnover. So yeah, we haven't used this one quite so much. There's one player in the under 13s who plays here, who's almost like a converted winger, still plays a bit as a winger. So he has overlapped a lot, and he's had some joy. He's got some assists this year. But yeah, probably as a general rule, we've used it maybe a bit less. This one probably haven't kind of just hasn't really happened. It was something that I had in mind at the start of the year, but just given I think it's more the physicality and the maturation of the players across the 13s and 14s. The player receiving, so essentially the concept is just any backwards passes having forward runs, both near side and far side. So obviously the reaction from the defenders once the ball goes backwards is they shuffle up, often with poor body shape, so that they're coming up square. So, it's just a cue for people, particularly on the opposite side, to make runs in behind, like counter movements to that. But what you're asking this player to do is either deliver almost like a cross, like Beckham style cross over these players into this channel of space here, or it's like a clipped pass over. And yeah, these players just, I don't know, just at 13, 14, or just the profile of the players that have been in there just haven't had the quality or the strength to be able to do it. So it's not something that we've worked on it quite a bit in training, but it just hasn't come into fruition in games. But it's certainly something that probably the 14s that are now going into 15s, I think they will be capable of it. We did start to see some of it just before we broke up for the lockdown. But yeah, it's maybe something for next year and maybe a couple of years' time for the 13s. And then obviously spoken a lot about combinations wide, but yeah, like central combinations as well. So clearly, like when the opposition are spread, and we find this a lot, like particularly when you play against like the Palaces of the world, couple of other clubs, like you find that their fullbacks are quite like man-to-man-y on your wingers, so it just spreads their backline out quite a bit. Their midfielders are quite sort of man-to-man with your midfielders, so just a lot of space developed centrally. So yeah, we've developed some combinations or some movements off of passes into the striker. Key thing probably being is just the impact that any passes into your striker's feet has on these two players. Just see it all the time. Every time it goes in there, this player getting attracted. So we've just spoken about getting good support around him, both beyond and behind, just for either layoffs or sets for then up back throughs. Again, nothing groundbreaking, but the key and the complexity in it is just making sure that everything's done with good quality, with the right timing, and these probably 5 or 6 players are all on the same wavelength. That's where I think these concepts break down, when people are not on the same wavelength. And our 13s actually have scored some really nice goals from central combinations this year. Been some great support from the 10s around this player, and we haven't really had a number 9 in the group. So it's often been a midfielder that's played here. So they're just naturally better at like linking and combining. So we've had some good success with the 13s off of central combinations this year. And to be fair, the 14s as well, they've had a couple of goals off the back of it. And then probably just final thing is obviously I've spoken a lot about the team, like the tactical concepts. Something that we sort of consciously did at the start of the year was try and link a lot of the players' targets. Sorry, Tom, am I okay to show like faces and whatever?
Yeah, it's fine. They don't know who they are, so it could be anyone.
Yeah. I only just thought about that as I put it up. But yeah, so we tried to link individual targets to the game model as best as we could, which is something that probably I personally and the club maybe haven't done quite so well in prior years, which just means that sometimes, and not in all cases, but in some cases, you just get a set of individual targets that are quite detached from the way that you want to play on the weekend. So there's just a lack of alignment, and it hurts or hinders the development process, I feel. We started off in the first cycle with some quite broad targets. So literally for some players, like if we take this player here, literally just application of creating and converting concepts, because we were trying to embed some new ideas or some old ideas, but just trying to really, I guess, solidify them solidify them. So a lot of the coaching at the start of the year was quite tactical. So we thought just some fairly broad tactical targets would link quite well to that. But then as the season's gone on, so cycle 2, what we've done is we've just broken down a lot of these concepts into smaller chunks that are more relevant to the individual. So for this player here, funnily enough, Tom, the question that you asked me about, getting turned between the lines and taking touches between the lines, this player here, quite undermaturated, he was reluctant to take his first touch forward between the lines. So his target then changed to creating and converting concepts, but getting his first touch facing forwards between the lines, and then just working on his forward running when the ball went wide or central. So yeah, we went from quite a broad set of targets to trying to make them a little bit more specific as the season went on. And I think that's worked pretty well, actually. It's something that I'd probably do again this year. Maybe not with this exact same set of players, because I think we're beyond that. We can stay quite specific. But if I was to receive a new crop of players, I think maybe that's something that I would think about doing again. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything.
Yeah, Charlie, thanks, mate. I'm really, it's really good to listen to you talk about this. I've got a couple of questions. The first really is just, what are your experiences of the players' ability to select, I suppose, the right pattern at the right time in relation to what they see on the pitch? So, imbalances in units, positioning of their teammates, the support, and then also just I suppose on the back of that, how comfortable they are to recognise when these things aren't on, based on the type of pass that they've received, or their first touch, or whatever. I'm just really interested in knowing how this has been built up over time.
Yeah. So I mean, it's been a process, really, Tom, and it's certainly not finished. There's loads more work to do. Yeah. I would say, in answer to the first one, we tried to sort of, simplify things a little bit for the players, just to try and guide their decision making a bit more. So we, as I said, at the start of the year, the problem I felt we found was we were building up great. We were breaking the midfield line really well, and then these players were just forcing things centrally.
Yeah, so
much, really annoying. So we did a lot of work on just moving the ball wide and then trying to create a chance from there. So we kind of ended up getting to the point where we were going into games more or less with that in the boys' minds. Once you get between the lines, move the ball wide, we'll create from there. And then it was just a case of, if you then got in the game and a team were defending quite differently, so they were really spread, like this one, it was then just a case of either the players recognising it themselves, or us recognising it and going, actually, they're pretty spread. I think it becomes quite obvious, really, when you're on the ball and you're sort of serving the final third. Sorry, 2 secs. When you're serving the final third, it becomes really obvious. If you haven't got a clear line of pass to your winger, it's more or less telling you that their fullback is probably a bit wider than he should be. Yeah. So it's quite a clear bit of feedback in the game to go, naturally, I might need to start looking a little bit more central now. Whereas most teams are quite zonal in their approach, quite compact. They protect the middle. So there's normally just a clear line of pass to your winger, and you start finding him, you start looking to try and work some combinations wide. If that's working, great, keep doing it. If it's not, then maybe we need to, think about something different. So I guess that's been the process in terms of getting the players to decide which stuff to use. In terms of the exact combination, I think I guess it's more about, say when the winger receives, him understand, just looking to see how his attacking midfielder or his fullback have supported him. Looking to see what the opposition have done. So has the fullback engaged me? Has he stayed in? Are there central midfield players tracking? Is there winger tracking? Are the centre backs coming too far across to protect the inside channel? It's just all that kind of stuff that you try and you try and get the players to understand and see in games. I think it's really hard for players to see in games, even senior players. Like, it's real tough, like when you're in the midst of a game, to see that, which probably where the coach comes in, looking out for that stuff and just trying to help where possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a process, and as I say, it's definitely not there yet. Like, definitely not.
And then I suppose my next question really for you is, what does this look like in practice for you? And I know that's a really broad question, and there's probably loads of different answers, but just as you've started to try and establish this, like where did you start, and like maybe where you end up? Just think it'd be really
So probably the first thing to say is it didn't just start this year. So this group, well, both groups of players. So with the 13s, I'd worked with them since under 10s, so ages. And with the 14s, I'd worked with them as 13s the year before. So both groups, we weren't starting from zero. And obviously you're never starting from zero when you've got a group of players. So it's probably the first thing to say. But in terms of introducing these concepts, we did a lot of analysis work. So quite fortunate that the first team attack in a very similar way, like quite a positional attack, some very similar combinations. So we were able to use a lot of their stuff from pre-season to show the boys these concepts, use some other like elite stuff from other teams to show the concepts. So we did quite a lot of analysis work, just explicitly going through it with the video, like showing the players. We then, like on the training pitch, we did just a mixture of practice really. So we did some patterns. We did a lot of patterns. We did a lot of phases of play. We did a lot of small-sided games with principles that linked to these concepts. Technical practices we tried to incorporate. So like just your bog standard technical, like crossing and finishing practices, we still tried to incorporate the concepts in. A lot of 11v11 games and a lot of like larger sided games, which again we tried to either put conditions on the game to bring about these concepts, or just explicitly coach the players in the game. So we did a lot of 11v11 stuff with just individual targets for players that link to these concepts, and then within the game, like giving quite purposeful feedback to those players. Just obviously you've then got your games, so playing the games, try and implement it, and then you've got a really good basis then to try and work out what's going on, what's working, what's not working. And I think our analysis sessions have been great this year. Like they've been led by the coaches by and large. We just don't have, obviously, as you know, Tom, we don't have a huge analysis department. So the analysis guys, they do a lot of their I guess the bog standard coding, like the individuals, the moments of the game stuff. But in terms of what we deliver to the players in analysis sessions is kind of dictated by the coaches, which I enjoy doing. And I feel like our analysis sessions have been good this year. We've reviewed a lot of our games in really good detail. There's been a lot of that stuff. And at the start of the year, it was a lot of showing the boys how well we'd built up and broken this line, but then just with the 13s, how poorly we'd then applied these concepts. Yeah. With the 14s, it was probably the other way around. It was showing a lot of build-up situations where we gave the ball away, but just how devastating we were in the final third. So a bit of a contrast there. But in answer to your question, no one specific thing. Yeah. But probably quite a lot of explicit coaching on the grass and in the classroom.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I think it's really nice just to hear just such an honest and balanced answer. So appreciate that. Tomo, do you have any additional questions for Charlie?
Yeah, maybe just one question, Charlie, and then one observation just for the benefit of our students after maybe. But yeah, just on, and I was going to ask this question before you mentioned it at the end there, but at the very start you spoke about your array of experiences in terms of more the physiological side of stuff at Loughborough that you were able to learn, and then obviously one of your roles at Tottenham to begin with was a full-time analyst, and our students are exposed to a range of modules at the moment on the course that we deliver. So just really to get your thoughts again of how important you think that's been for you. Obviously you just alluded to there that I think you probably undervalued it, but it's definitely a huge skill that you've clearly got to be able to take on the analysis session and deliver that really, really well. So yeah, just to get your thoughts on how important you think that's been for you to have exposure to all of those different roles.
Yeah, I think I think definitely really important. So yeah, as I say, if I look at a lot of the physiology stuff, as I say, it just I in my current role I have to lead a like a multidisciplinary meeting every week, where we're looking at player maker reports with data, and the S&C guys are talking about their warm ups or their programming for the week in the gym, and I feel like I understand. Like it's not a leap for me to understand anything that they're talking about. I understand it all really clearly, which in my mind is probably a bit, I think that's just second nature, but probably for a lot of other coaches that haven't had that background, they're probably, I don't know, probably sitting there thinking, like, what the hell does he mean by acute chronic ratio or whatever? But yeah, so I feel like, I guess the role of like the full-time academy coach now, I think you'd probably be a bit ill-equipped if you didn't understand a lot of that stuff. And I know, some of my colleagues that maybe haven't had as much of an academic background, I think they've had to do a lot of stuff in their own time, like a lot of either reading or questioning people to try and sort of bring themselves up to speed. So yeah, I would say crucial. And then with the analysis side of things, for me, and I mean, maybe I've got a different outlook to other coaches, but I don't really see the two as separate. Coaching and analysis are one and the same for me. So yeah, I think it's been an absolutely crucial skill set to learn for my own coaching, and it's something that I use every single day, and I'm using in this current lockdown period. I feel like I'm an analyst again, and it's been really good. And probably for my own career moving forwards, who knows? I could probably end up falling into an analysis role again at some stage in my career. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know, but it clearly gives me a lot more, I guess, flexibility when applying for roles or trying to add value to a coaching staff. So yeah, I think very important, I would say.
Perfect. No, I think that's really, really insightful. And just probably more of an observation from me, and again, just really thankful that you've been able to share what you have this afternoon. But some of the conversations me and Tom I often have with students, not confusion is probably a bit too strong of a word, but they're obviously very regularly battling with what their thoughts are and then how they transfer that message to us just generically, and sometimes in assessments as well. But I just thought that the clarity of what your message was this afternoon and how you were able to link some of the individual characteristics of the players, and obviously that there's a real need to develop them within academy football, of course there is, but your ability to then showcase how that transferred into how you were trying to work with the converting part of the game, I just thought was really, really good, and I learned loads from it. So I know the students would have taken an awful lot out of it. And I think it will certainly challenge me to be a little bit more straightforward with the message that I'm trying to convey at different times. So yeah, just a big thank you from me, and I'm sure on behalf of the students as well. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Enjoyed it. It's been good.
Thanks, mate. Always, I think it's always refreshing when people are willing to give such honest insights into their coaching practice. Some people can be, we know some practitioners can be a little bit insular and maybe a little bit protective over certain ideas. So, big thank you for being willing to.
Yeah, just on that, Tom. Like I would say, it's one of the things I've probably learned across my own journey. I was probably a bit like that when I was younger. You know, you get into coaching and you feel like your content is like unique or your own, and you're a bit wary or guarded of sharing with other people. But you know, the more experienced I've become, the more willing I've been to share, and it just opens up whole new avenues for yourself. The more you're willing to share, the more open other people will be with you, the more likely they are to give you opportunities or share their own work, which will further your own development. So yeah, I think it's absolutely important to share and be open with your ideas. And I think you're right, there are some people that are maybe a bit guarded, but I genuinely think that's to their detriment.
Brilliant. Listen, thank you so much. Some really good messages today. So really appreciate your time. So thanks once again.
No worries. Cheers.